From CRI Simple Numbers, this is Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers podcast, a podcast for those championing market growth and anchoring the nation's economy, small businesses and entrepreneurs.
Hey there. Welcome to another episode of the Simple Numbers Profitability Playbook podcast. I'm Mike Maxson. That's Brandon Gray. And we're here with Mike Coffey of Imperative Information Group. And we're going to talk some HR stuff today, a topic me and Brandon have not dabbled in yet on this podcast. And so, I always joke that I'm a walking HR violation. And
And Mike's my consultant, so I will agree that that's commonly true.
Yeah, and now you know why we don't have our own company's HR person on here to talk. No, seriously. Mike's got a really cool business. We can't wait to tell you about it. But first, make sure you all hang out here to the end of the podcast. Brandon has something he wants to talk to you about that we led with last time. We'll talk about it again in the end this time. But awesome. Let's get it started. Mike, thank you for joining us. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me. Looking forward to it.
Yeah. So, I mean, outside of, I'm not going to ask those okay, well, let's say I know a guy that did this.
My cousin said this.
But my man Mike here, he's a CEO of Imperative Information Group, as I mentioned, and they specialize in background checks. And Mike, I'm going to ask some questions around that, but tell us just a little bit about the business, what you guys offer, how you're different, all that cool stuff, so I can drill in on you there.
Okay, well, I started the company back in the 90s as just an HR consulting practice first, kind of moonlighting through my corporate job and then full-time consulting. And then in 99, I had a financial services client who had me come in to look at their employee selection process nationwide. And one of the things they definitely needed was better background checks. And because I'd run that for one of the largest healthcare systems in Texas, I knew the right questions to ask. And they just didn't have anybody who responded to their RFPs and our outreach that were giving us the right answers. And one thing led to the other, and I ended up opening a background screening company in 99 just to take care of these really kind of special risk-averse clients who want more than a piece of paper in the file. So since 99, that's who we've served, are those clients who just because of the nature of their business or because of just the personality of their leadership are pretty risk averse and want to make sure that they're really onboarding the right person. A lot of them have been burned. Most of our clients come to us after they bought a $30 or a $50 background check. And then they've got a bad case of, I wish I knew then what I know now, because something went wrong and they found out there's some things that maybe if they'd known, they would have hired somebody else or at least asked some better questions. So that's who we serve nationwide. We're based in North Texas here in Fort Worth, but 12th largest city in the country, by the way. Most people don't know that.
Did not know that.
Yeah. It's
Go Cowboys.
Yeah, we're in the shadow of our ugly suburb over in Dallas. And so people see it, but we are, it's a great place to live and raise your family. So we've done that. I've got 22 employees who do all the heavy lifting on the background screening side. And I still get to spend a good bit of my time consulting with clients about their either employee relations or employee selection issues, those kind of issues. And I've got my podcast and I speak at a lot of HR conferences and volunteer. I'm state director-elect for Texas SHRM, which is the state HR association. So that's kind of it in a very large nutshell.
So you mentioned something pretty interesting, and me and Brandon know this well because we've been burned by the cheap background check.
I was going through the stories in my mind.
Yeah, I know, me too. I was like, man, how much do I want to share? But so real quick, tell us because I honestly, until I met you, I didn't know the depth of it all. What not only do you do differently that sets you apart from that, but what then are employers at risk of not having good quality background checks like what you do?
Well, the biggest challenge I have from a marketing point of view is that on a piece of paper, all the background checks look the same. We checked your criminal record, no record found. The problem is often when the report says no record found, there really should have been a record found. And so, the reports look the same, but it's the back end. And really, after 9/11, a lot of data companies got into this business, started building these really big databases to try to throw at the background check problem, and make them fast and make them inexpensive and less labor intensive. So the problem with those is they still miss probably about 50% of the records
Wow.
that we would, and just in the database that we would report to our clients, and using more thorough processes. There's not a nationwide database. Even the Department of Justice's National Crime Information Center database is, the DOJ put out a report saying half our records are incomplete, and we don't even really know how many others we're missing. So if the Fed don't have a good database, nobody's going to, be able to compile privately a database. There are whole states like New York and California that don't make their records available to databases. Even here in Texas, I'm in Tarrant County, Texas, and the local judges got together in the early 90s and said, we are not going to let our records be downloaded in bulk for private use. And so you're missing, it's just a patchwork. And like I say, any database is going to miss probably 50% of the records that you even report. So and so how do we really get the records if it's not a database? We're actually sending people the old fashioned way, physically into courthouses all over the country, or in some jurisdictions where we know those records are really reliable online, we're logging into the court's online systems. But a lot of the courts have online systems, but they don't put all their records out there. And so there's all kinds of things like that just on the criminal piece. And then, we have clients who run civil litigation searches, and there are a lot of these database companies try to sell civil litigation searches. And again, there's a lot of additional research to be done to make sure it's the right person, that you're reporting on the right John Jones or John Smith, that this is really the right person in the civil case, those kinds of things. And then now we're rolling out, with all this remote work, it's become such a problem because there's all kinds of fraud, and people are using other people's identities to apply for remote work jobs.
Just taking my next question, Mike. Go ahead. Keep going.
And so, so that's gotten really out of hand. And the North Koreans, I don't know if you just Google North Korean remote worker fraud, but the North Koreans have for about a decade now been posting fake jobs online and getting real U.S. Engineers, computer scientists, people like that to apply for the jobs. And they actually conduct interviews with these people, and they really think they're talking to an employer for a remote job. And they collect their name, date of birth, social security number, all the stuff you need for a background check or to apply for another job. Then they ghost them. Then the North Koreans are turning around and applying for real jobs at real companies, Amazon, Microsoft, companies like that, and using these other people's identities. And they're passing the background checks because these people don't have any criminal history. They've got their employment history. They're calling and verifying employment, the whole 9 yards, and it all works. And so these employers think they're dealing with the right person. And then they get in there and they realize either they don't have the skills, but often they do. And the North Koreans, using workers in North Korea, Russia, or China, are actually doing the work for American companies. And they're avoiding U.S. sanctions because they're getting hard dollars paid to these people. I think the FBI said they've identified like $88 million that's been transferred to North Korea. And that's just what they know about. And so, and we've got tech clients, and they had several instances that we've caught things like this that were happening. And so now we're rolling out biometrics for our clients, so that I thought it'd be the beginning of the background check process is when most clients would do it. So they have to download a little app to their phone, the applicant does, and then they take a picture of their ID front and back, and then use the app and take a live selfie of themselves to demonstrate it's really them. It's not AI, because that's the other thing that's going on, and verifies that. But now the clients who are adopting it are moving it to the beginning of their interview process, because they're like, we share information that we might not want to share with the North Korean or somebody like that. And so they're moving it to the very beginning of their process rather than the background check when it's kind of late in the process to start over again.
Well, that's pretty cool. Yeah, I had the thing up because I was obviously this morning looking at it, and I wanted you to talk about that. So I'm glad you did it. Now, is there a specific industry or group of people or anything that are more at risk for this sort of thing, or is it really just they're going to get in anywhere.
Well, it's primarily people with remote, employers with
Yeah.
remote jobs, and they're really peppering tech companies, financial services companies, groups like that, because what they do once they get inside, maybe they do the job for some period of time, but they're also engaging in the other big remote employee fraud, overemployment. So one of these contractors may have 3 or 4 or 5 jobs, and so they don't always aren't stellar performers, and so at some point, either lack of skills or lack of productivity, they're going to start to get managed out, and that's when they start to reveal, okay, here's the reality. We've had access to your network for 6 weeks, 2 months, or longer, and we've got control of your data, and they push a button and it can lock the employer's network down, and now they're holding it for ransom. And I'm convinced, just because I've worked with so many employers over the years, employers, if they can pay a ransom and not tell the FBI about it, not get the press, not get all of that, they're doing that. I've got no doubt of that. And so we don't know how often this has really happened, but the FBI has acknowledged it has. In fact, I think it's the assistant agent in charge, and I think someplace in the South, in January at the FBI field office, said that if you're hiring remote employees, you have either interviewed a North Korean or you have one working for you at this point. That's how basic it is. And so, yeah, it's,
Brandon, get our list of remote employees now.
Exactly.
Jake,
Well,
I knew it. I knew it, Jake.
Yeah. So, have y'all really checked out where Crabtree really lives? I mean,
yeah, if anyone's a North Korean, it's that guy.
I hear they got good golf courses there, so
that's right. And you would have found it
you
too.
to get a tea time, yeah.
Oh gosh, yeah. You speak on a lot of topics on the Good Morning HR podcast, and now I'm shifting from background checks to just your expertise and overall HR stuff. What lately have been those hot button topics that you've run into in the HR space?
Well, it's almost a cliche, but everybody wants to talk about AI, and that's a big deal. And I'm, both. What a lot of even HR people don't realize is AI has been, some sort of AI has been baked into their systems for years. It's, if they're using Indeed or they're using those kind of systems, there's AI baked into that. Every time we use Google, there's AI baked into it. So, but now that with the large language models and some of the tools that are out there, two things are happening. HR is getting, or AI is getting weaponized against HR, against recruiters, because applicants can now apply to dozens or hundreds of jobs using some apps that are out there, and they're not even maybe even mildly qualified for the jobs. And so recruiters are dealing with so many more applications now, and now they're trying to use AI to go through and weed out those applicants and figure out who's minimally qualified and who's not, and go through that, and with varying levels of success. I was at the Sherm annual conference in San Diego last week and talking to people about that, and some folks feel like it's really helping them, and some folks, some of the HR professionals I talk to feel like the AI, adding too much automation to the process is making it hard, making their candidate experience negative, and making it hard for the company to connect directly with that person and make them feel like, the company really would value you as an employee, because everything is getting so overly automated. So everybody's trying to find that balance between those two things. But beyond that, we're in Trump 2.0. And one of the things that keeps coming up is the first Trump administration changed the definition of independent contractor from the way that the tests that employers were to use to determine if, under the DOL standards at least, if somebody was an independent contractor. And then the Biden administration came in, they changed it again to be more exclusive, to make it harder to be an independent contractor. And then the Trump administration came back in, and although they haven't changed the DOL rules, they've issued guidance to the DOL saying, here's what you're going to use when you're evaluating whether you're going to go after somebody for misclassification of an independent contractor. And so a lot of employers use independent contractors, and basically the Trump 2.0 standards liberalize that some. It really looks, is this person really economically independent from the employer, which is kind of the standard that the Trump administration is using to determine if somebody's really an independent contractor or if they should be a W-2 employee. And so we're getting a lot of questions about that. And then the whole HR world is kind of tapping the brakes, push the gas, tap the brakes, push the gas, because we're waiting on the economy to decide what it wants to do. The first half of the year has been slow, and a lot of companies are doing well, maybe, but they're tapping the brakes. Leadership saying, "Hold the brakes, don't hire anybody right now." And then demand builds up, and they've got to get some staff, and all of a sudden they have to go hire a bunch of people, because they've built it too much. And then they're like, okay, well, let's not overhire, tap the brakes, because everybody's still stinging from 2021 when they held too long, and then they really overhired, and we got the Great Resignation and a lot of turnover. So it's always an interesting time to be in HR, but the last really since 2020 forward has been just constant changing of how you're doing things almost weekly.
And so with that, regarding the labor market, I mean, I always felt that in working with you, you were slightly a little bit of a leading indicator for me. Like, hey, those background checks are pumping through. I mean, people must be. I mean, do you get that feeling? Do you get more of a interesting view of the labor market like this?
Yeah, unfortunately, because I'd like to be later in the. I would like that to be a leading indicator so I can ran better, but. Yeah, but we see it when employers really consistently over 4 or 5 weeks, our clients are continually hiring at a higher rate. We know that optimism, just confidence is up, and employers are making these longer term investment in employees. So that's usually a good thing. And I'll say the last 5 or 6 weeks have looked pretty optimistic. I think maybe employers and company leadership are getting past their tariff concerns, and that's kind of leveling out. And so we're seeing it. We're not as strong as we were increase wise over the first 2 quarters. Last year we're pretty flat, but we started really after the administration was all the executive orders on day one and tariff talk started heating up. Q1 was really slow, and we've really ramped up pretty good since then. So we'll see. I'm more optimistic certainly than I was April 1st.
Sure. What do you think in your experience, and a lot of the companies that are probably listening to this are in the small business realm, from an HR perspective, how can those companies get set up good from an HR perspective? Because man, we run into a lot, and where they just, from everything from pay bans to making sure employees understand their handbook or policies or all that stuff. I mean, what can small businesses do to better set themselves up for just success from an HR standpoint?
Well, I'll say first, I would caveat here that some of the best HR people I know got into HR by accident, and it started with a small or medium-sized company. They were maybe the administrative assistant or executive assistant to the CEO, and that person asked them, "Hey, I need you to take over payroll, or I need you to handle these benefits issues or something." They got kind of sucked into one little segment of HR, usually in the financial side. And then those responsibilities kept getting added to them, and they learned quickly, and they did good. So, but I will say that small and medium-sized businesses, if you don't have a really mature HR group, and most of them don't at that size, you've got to find some local consultants that you trust and rely on them. I know small businesses that rely primarily on their legal counsel, which is great. on the legal side, if you can afford that level, right? That level of advice, 200,
$500 an hour.
yeah, whatever it is. And every phone call costs you $75, $80, or a minimum billing of $150. So, but there are really good consultants in almost every community that, and maybe you're just going to have a consultant who helps you with benefits and the financial side, and a different consultant who helps you with employee relations, those kind of things. Depending on what the issues you're having, that's probably the way to do it. Then they can help you build your systems. A lot of, most consultants don't want to do your routine day-to-day stuff, but they can help you build that system, and then you can put, one of your own employees into that system. And that's a really good way over time to build out your HR until you get enough, critical mass to justify hiring, a full-time HR person.
Yeah, Greg used me as HR for the longest time. And I did tell him, I warned him from the start, I'm like, are you sure you want to do this? He's like, no, you have to. Or, at the time we were small when we started. I made it this far. Now when I run for president, it's all going to come out.
Yeah.
I'm done for at that point. But for now, it works, right?
I think that'll bring the least of your worries.
Yeah. Brandon, what do you got, man?
Yeah. So Mike and I've talked before about he'll come by the desk and say, "Hey, I talked to Mike Coffey, and he's seeing this happen in terms of leading indicators and what have you there." Where would you say, just kind of based upon, I know you said the last couple of weeks have looked pretty decent in terms of momentum. If you were to put a forecast out for the second half of the year based on what you're seeing and hearing out there, what are your thoughts around that?
If our history proves right and the confidence keeps rising, as far as hiring, July and August are usually pretty slow. People are on vacation and just decisions don't get made. And we typically heat up September, October. And so that's what I'm really looking forward to. If confidence is up, we should really see the employment start to heat up in September, October, I'm hoping. But I plan as a pessimist. And so, I'm trying to be ready for for it not to be, that way. But that's my gut, is that things are leveling out, and, America's about doing business, and they're going to continue to find a way to do business and work past whatever fears we have about tariffs or any of these things. And I'm expecting, the second half of the year, especially end of the third quarter, beginning of the fourth quarter, to be a lot more positive on the number side.
Gotcha. And two, what would you say is the most common mistake that you see entrepreneurs make when it comes to HR, hiring, background checks, whatever it may be there?
Well, I think it's the biggest mistakes they make are who they select, and it's well before the background check. I mean, especially entrepreneurs, we think we're the smartest guy in the room, and some areas, there's some domains of knowledge we are probably, but we trust our gut so much. And I'm a highly intuitive person. I make decisions from from my gut a lot. But I personally, and I'm a career HR guy, have been burned making hiring decisions from my gut. And I think that's, most people don't spend the time to figure out, what does this job really need to be successful? What are the skills and the competencies that the person needs? What are the personality behaviors that they need? And so what they end up doing is hiring somebody they like, and they've got a great attitude, and I can train them to do that job. And maybe you can train them to do that job, but do they really have the aptitude to sit and, if it's a data entry role, to sit in front of 2 computer monitors all day long doing, really repetitive data entry stuff? That's, I see those kind of mistakes. I was, we really clicked, and, they're going to be great for culture. Well, if culture is not putting work out the door, that's a mistake. And so, and I hear those kind of things, and then they're stuck, and they've got somebody, they like, who's underperforming, and they make excuses for them, or they go try to create a job for this person. And so now this person's already has a reputation in the organization as not being somebody who does a great job. but they're the manager's pet or they're the owner's pet, and oh, look, they're making a custom job for them. They're setting that person up just for a really hard time. And maybe you recognize, we've done it in our organization where I've recognized I made a hiring mistake. I put the wrong person in the wrong job, but they do have skills here that we could use and we need. And maybe I'm using an outside contractor and spending money on. And so now I can turn it around and bring it in-house. That's great. But I think just often really not knowing what you're hiring for and really spending the time to figure that out. And if you can do competency assessments, like, what are the skills this person needs, and have them demonstrate those, because resumes are polite lies. And, they're lying, just assume to half what they're telling you is a lie in a resume. And so, and you can't even compare job title from company to company. Somebody worked in a corporate entity and they were they had an accounting title. And now they're coming to your organization. It's a very different job to do bookkeeping if they're running a small organization.
Yep.
And so, and maybe you'll get a good reference just because the previous employer is so damn glad to get them out of their door. And so, this can't, you really need them to demonstrate competencies. There are online tools for almost anything you want them to demonstrate, to get them, whether it's coding or accounting or anything like that, where it's a technical thing and it's, a pass fail where you can tell if they really have the skills, assess those competencies. I'm a big believer in using behavior assessments in your team building, and some of the good assessments you can give them to your candidates, and it gives you feedback. And I wouldn't hire or not hire somebody based on those assessments, but I would definitely follow up and ask those questions. Like, if this person's a real high extrovert and not a rule follower, that's me, asking that person to sit in front of a computer and do data entry all day in a real repetitive, step-by-step process is probably a mistake. And so sometimes during the interview, all you have to do is explain the job to them very clearly, so it's so painful to them to say, hear it, but let's do it, that maybe they opt out. So that's what that's what I think, is just testing the competencies, figuring out, is this person really what we need for this job, and getting past that gut instinct. I really like this person. I'd love to have coffee with them or whatever.
Brandon and I are the quintessential, we figured it out guys. I still remember where I was. This was probably 8 years ago. I remember where I was driving, and I was on my way to get some Chinese food. And it's like 7, 8 at night, and Brandon calls me up and he's like, "Where are we going wrong, man?" I'll just spare you the details, but it was like, "Where are we going wrong?" It's like, okay, we got to rethink this whole thing.
Something's wrong. Something's wrong. This is not going. This is supposed to.
I swear we had it figured out.
Well, and in your environment, you're hiring for roughly the same competencies over and over. So once you build that process and you tweak it over, 6 months, a year, whatever, it makes it almost autopilot. If somebody can get through your competency test and your behavior stuff, the questions you're going to ask them and what answers you want, it makes it really easy to hire. But it takes some time and some trial and error. But the trial and error that is not working is just going by your gut every time, and that's what we default to, though.
We've been on a pretty good one. We've been on a decent streak lately. Yeah. For any of our team members who are listening, we love you all. I swear, it's been good.
Except Micah,
yeah, right. Micah's over there. He's listening. He's probably like, "What? Now they're bringing me up." Brandon, you gonna wrap this up?
Yeah, great. I mean, we covered a lot. I mean, we've talked everything from North Korea, remote worker fraud, to where things are going economically. So, Mike, I appreciate your insight and some really great nuggets there. We've lived it in terms of that $49.99 background check, and then something goes wrong, and you find out there's a record there, and you go, "Well, it didn't show up on the background check. What?"
Not just a record.
Yeah, there's definitely you need to do your due diligence there as far as those things are concerned. And love what Mike was saying too about, especially for entrepreneurs, use some seasoned consultants, use some outside experts to set up the system and process. And then, as you grow, you can put someone in to implement. But, the cost of someone who can do that whenever you're just really needing them to keep a process rolling is substantially different.
Right.
So really like that as well.
Well, that's why people use simple numbers, right? I mean,
Exactly.
I can't justify the price of a CFO with the experience and insight that, I hate to say it, that Mike Maxon provides, right? So it's true. It's valuable, and there are a lot of good consultants out there on the HR side who can help you.
Sure. Awesome. Well, cool.
All right.
Well, everybody, thank you. Appreciate it,
One
Mike.
last thing. We almost finished too early. So,
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry, that one part.
This is one of the best parts of the podcast here. So, all right. So what we're going to do is we got a giveaway. So we're in the month of July. We're going to do this until about mid-August. So if you're listening after middle of August, you missed the boat. You have to get on the next one. But we're going to give away a simple start session to a listener of our podcast. And in order to qualify for that, we're asking you to go to the Simple Numbers LinkedIn page and to message us. All you got to put in the message is Simple Start. Put Simple Start in the message on our LinkedIn page. That's the Simple Numbers LinkedIn page. You'll be entered to win a Simple Start session. So do that. Tell everyone about it. We're looking forward to seeing how many folks will enter and what we can give away there. So if you got questions on it, holler at us.
Sweet. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and we will catch you next week.
If you want to know more about driving sustainable profitability for your business or are interested in learning more about CRI Simple Numbers, please visit our website at simplenumberscri.com. Thanks for listening to this episode of Profitability Playbook, the Simple Numbers Podcast. You can subscribe to Profitability Playbook on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you prefer to listen to podcasts. If you like what you heard today, please leave us a review. This podcast is brought to you by CRI Simple Numbers LLC, a division of CRI Capital Group LLC, and a subsidiary of CRI Advisors LLC. CRI is the trusted brand under which Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC, the CPA firm, and CRI Advisors LLC, along with its subsidiaries, deliver professional services. Please note, Carr, Riggs & Ingram LLC is a licensed independent CPA firm offering attest services, whereas CRI Advisors LLC and its subsidiaries specialize in providing tax and business consulting services. These entities operate within an alternative practice structure as defined by the AICPA Code of Professional Conduct and comply fully with applicable laws, regulations, and professional standards. Ready to simplify your business finances and drive growth? Explore valuable resources, books, and tools designed for entrepreneurs and small businesses at simplenumberscri.com.